Hey guys, it's Hunter. Welcome back to another episode of Ask a Fish. This is the series where I answer your questions on Discord, so don't forget to join our server if you got a question for a future episode. Some juicy questions to catch up on, and there is a lot to talk about in the land of guitar gear. So smack a like on the video if you're going to enjoy it. Praise be to the almighty algorithm, and it actually really helps out the channel. And with that, let's jump into your questions. Turkey Chow, Purple Gang Leader asks, dude, have you seen these new Schecter Stargazers? Big Rickenbacker vibes. No, I actually had not, but oh my god, thank you for bringing the Stargazers to my attention, because these are, as the name suggests, these are out there. And I've been saying this for a while, but Schecter is such a slept-on brand, and I know how ridiculous that sounds, because they're a massive brand owned by the same guy that owns ESP. It's true, look it up. But also, the general perception of Schecter guitars is kind of stuck in the 2000s metalcore era. You mention Schecter and immediately people's minds go to abalone, EMGs, and Monster Energy, and fair enough, they still make those somehow. Dude, like everyone seemed to have one. They were just so good for the money. And even now, I'd say Schecter is some of the best value in the market in terms of the big brands. But besides just the metal guitars, they also make awesome non-drywall punching guitars that seem to fly under everyone's radar, including mine this time with the new Stargazers. So let's rectify that right now, because these are super unusual and another great example of how Schecter's non-chug guitars deserve way more love than they seem to get. Now, I'm gonna guess a lot of you are like me and this is your first time ever seeing a Schecter Stargazer, and like our friend Purple Gang Leader pointed out, big Rickenbacker vibes, those horns especially. But this is actually not the Stargazer's first run, and there are little things you'll appreciate more about it if you're aware of its interesting background. And I'm not super familiar with Schecter's model history. Luckily, they have a bunch of their catalogs archived online. Good God, they have made some wild guitars over the years. You could make a whole series of videos on the different Schecter models that have been lost to time. But besides just seeing more flames, tribal designs, and abalone binding than I ever need to ever again, the earliest mention of an actual Stargazer I found was part of the 2008 Diamond series. Made in Korea, Schecter debuted this brand new series, very different to what they were known for, with a 12-string at launch. Listen, Schecter have always been ballsy. Ash bodies, rosewood fingerboards, Duncan design pickups, Grover tuners, Tone Pros bridge, nice vintage vibes, and then just the most awful custom S stands for Schecter tailpiece. Schecter, God, what, just why? Sometimes it reminds me of the Super S you used to doodle on everything in middle school for absolutely no reason. But yeah, clear Rickenbacker influence with the crimson ghost color and the Gumby headstock shape. And it turns out the Stargazer was actually born as the flat top version of an even older shape, the 00, I guess, or 00. You had 006 for guitar, 004 for bass, an obvious tip of the hat to the Rickenbacker 4000 series basses, and I'm just gonna call it the 00. It's like a carved top C shape combined with Rickenbacker horns. And by the way, on the guitar side at least, this was a staple in Schecter's lineup for about a decade. It of course got the abalone EMG red quilt metalcore treatment. It was part of the Blackjack series for a bit, the Elite and Deluxe series. There were even 007s. Then in 2010, it kind of just disappeared completely. And around the same time, Schecter replaced the 004 with the first Stargazer basses. Humbucker single EMG loaded 5-string Rickenbackers? Hell yeah. It's ridiculous. The 5-string bass humbucker is such a massive fucking pickup. And as you can tell, I went down a bit of a rabbit hole with this one and was not prepared at all for how deep this Stargazer lore goes. But I've always been a fan of history. I love understanding the how and why things are the way they are, especially when it comes to guitars, and I love sharing the backstories. Love that you guys love hearing them. That way you've got the context and know the lore behind these new and sometimes obscure models, and I've been doing that a lot more these days, thanks in large part to today's sponsor, One Shot Energy. And I love having One Shot as a channel partner because they're not just a sponsor. They're revolutionizing the world of health and sustainable energy through their tasty supplement-infused candies. They're legitimately part of both my daily life and work routines. Regular viewers know how much One Shot's voice drops have been a game changer and are now an essential part of my workflow. Developed with Matt Hafey of Trivium for musicians, streamers, anyone that needs to protect their voice. You might have noticed them, they're literally always on my desk because I'll reach for one every time I turn on the camera. Before, especially for the longer deep dives, I was burning through a truly unhinged number of Halls drops during filming just to keep my voice going. Shivani dubbed it my serial killer trait. Rude, but not totally off base. Now, with the voice drops, getting lost down sometimes obscure gear rabbit holes and into the extra nerdy details with you guys is so easy. Still have my voice, don't look like a serial killer. Then as someone very sensitive to caffeine, One Shot's caffeine-free focus chews are awesome to get and stay on track. Full of vitamins like B6 and B12 and fortified with zinc for a natural energy burst as well as nutritional benefits and immune system support. The new toxic limeade flavor just dropped. I was already sold on the COD 4 color theme. The memories, what a game, dude.
Too much radiation.
Then packed with 75 milligrams of pure caffeine and enhanced with nootropics, One Shot's energy chews are like fruit chew sized energy drinks, minus the sugar crash or the cost. Just pop one, get energized, quick and efficient, love it. And the best thing is, as a channel partner, One Shot is giving you guys 10% off the entire site using my code AGAFISH. Link will be in the description, discounts also stack, so any deals you see, use AGAFISH for an even better one. And of course, clicking the link or using the code helps support the channel by letting them know that I sent you. And while you're checking that out, let's get back into guitars. First generation Stargazer guitars and basses were made in a few different colors until about 2013. They developed a little cult following, especially on the bass side for obvious reasons, but the Stargazers had been out of the lineup for just over a decade at this point. Alright, so now you know the history, that's how we got here. With that heritage in mind, let's talk about the new Stargazers. They've gone all out with 3 new guitars and 3 new basses. And Good Guy Schecter, brand of the people, has left-handed versions at launch for all of them. Even though left-handed doesn't get all the same colors, Schecter continues to be the biggest brand that goes out of its way to show lefties a lot of love. If this were an Epiphone drop, you'd be waiting 2 years, if not until the end of time itself. Don't know why I specifically pointed to Epiphone, because it's not just them, but we move. We'll look at basses in a second, but starting on the guitar side, there's the Stargazer 6 in gloss black with a maple board, and in gloss white with an ebony board, which also comes in lefty. The Stargazer 12, and yes, they're reviving the 12-string version too, comes in the same colors. And new for this relaunched Stargazer series, a vibrato version in metallic gold with the Schecter branded Bigsby and a Tone Pros roller bridge. Crazy how even the metallic gold vibrato and 12-string with that massive headstock coming left-handed for like the audience of about 3 people for these niche models. Good Guy Schecter, man, I'm telling you. Also love how they've pretty much brought back the 004's headstock shape, and actually the whole black Stargazer look is kind of a callback to the 2007 Proto Stargazer 004. Then the white Stargazers are like if Rob Scallon's guitars were going through their shoegaze era. Actually, the 12 looks like something Scallon would play. That dude likes lots of strings. And by the way, I'll leave Sweetwater and Tone links to more details on all the gear we're covering in the description, and reverb links if you want to try to snag a deal on one of the older generation models or one of the 00 ancestors. Also, you can bookmark those if you're buying something later. Really helps out the channel when you use them. I get a little kickback to hire editors and up the quality of the content, so really appreciate you if you decide to bookmark those. But so most of the general specs are shared across the Stargazer line. Mahogany bodies set through 3-piece maple necks with thin C shapes. A definite improvement over the standard set neck block the previous generation had. Splittable Schecter USA Super Rock vintage pickups, which, I mean, Schecter started as a parts company. These aren't generic in-house pickups. Schecter's got a lot of experience with guitar electronics. I feel like every time they bring out a new model, I'm always learning about new sets of pickups they make. These seem to be in the PAF family, low middle-ish output, and interestingly, it's fully covered with no exposed screws. And pickup covers actually do make a difference to tone. Uncovered pickups tend to be a little brighter and slightly hotter sounding. Regular pickup covers with the screws exposed tame the high end slightly. It makes the sounds a little more mellow. Following that, I would assume that covers with no exposed screws makes for an even more mellow sound, but honestly, never tried it, so if you know the answer as to how it affects tone, let me know in the comments, please. Love how Schecter has this little animation video on the product page with no sound, so that's how they're put together if you were interested, but if you were looking for tones or even a description, look elsewhere. Graphtec Tusk nuts, then Tone Pros M series tuners. Never heard of them, can't find any mention of them anywhere else, but these suspiciously Hipshot-esque tuners on the new Reaper 5 bases. But these M series enclosures look very similar to Goto Mini 510s, so I guess the M series is some sort of new Korean OEM hardware licensing deal. Either way, Tone Pros knows solid hardware. And I was actually surprised to see the Tone Pros name with how much Schecter's been using their own branded tuners on guitars in this price range, but Tone Pros is a better name to have on the spec sheet, so I wouldn't be surprised to see more Tone Pros M series in the future. Tone Pros locking bridge on the 6-string, and unfortunately Tone Pros don't do 12-string bridges though. Either way, the Super S tailpiece is gone, thank God, although I did do a little more research into Rickenbacker guitars. I didn't notice that Rickenbacker's tailpiece had an R in it, which is embarrassing because it's literally right there, so Schecter was doing an inversed play on that. I feel kind of dumb and blind, we move. And now here's what's so cool about Schecter's retro style guitars. From what's on the current site, Rickenbacker guitars generally have a 24 3/4 inch scale length, a traditional set neck joint, and a 10-inch fingerboard radius with frets on the smaller side. Meanwhile, the Schecter Stargazers have 25.5-inch scale lengths, the Ultra Access set-through joint, 14-inch fingerboard radii, and jumbo frets. So clearly, very vintage-inspired vibes and aesthetics, then combined with the modernized feel and contemporary convenience features that you expect from a Schecter. Right, so like personally, I love vintage looks. I hate how small vintage frets tend to be. So yeah, big fan of Schecter's Retro Series guitars. Moving on to the Stargazer basses, we've got the Stargazer 4, the Stargazer 5, and the outrageous looking Stargazer 12. We'll come back and talk more about that in a second, but my god, there is so much happening on that headstock and at the bridge actually, but that tailpiece with all the string ends neatly lined up is oddly satisfying. Same colors as the guitars, gloss black with a maple board and gloss white with an ebony board. Also available left-handed. Sadly though, even Schecter weren't mad enough to do a metallic gold Bigsby bass in left-handed. Specs fall mostly in line with the guitars, just translated to bass, mahogany bodies, thin C3-piece maple necks. Now, while the previous generation Stargazer basses and the 004s were bolt-on and came with EMGs, these have set-through joints and Schecter USA pickups that seem to have been exclusively designed for this series. Mammoth-sized pole pieces, big old beefy bass humbucker in the bridge with the single coil in the neck, and I'm sure an actual bass player can tell you what in the fuck all those controls do. But so anyways, let's go back to the wild 12-string bass because just why? Thanks to Ian Martin Allison on Scott's Bass Lessons for a very entertaining video explaining the concept. I'll link in the description if you want to check out the full video after. But so basically you've got your 4 main strings tuned normally, then 2 additional strings tuned to the same 1 octave higher. But since you can never get the strings perfectly 100% in tune with each other, you get this super wide chorusy effect. So that's pretty cool, but god damn, that headstock is so fucking intimidating. Now, because people are comparing these to Rickenbackers, for obvious reasons, and want to know if these are good, affordable alternatives, Rickenbacker basses have a very Rick-specific 33.25-inch scale length. The Schecters have a slightly longer 34 inches, which Fender set as the long-scale bass standard. From what I've read on forums, bassists don't really seem to notice much of a difference, if any, between the two. It makes sense. The longer you go, 3/4 of an inch becomes a smaller percentage difference, or bassists are just too busy having a good time. But again, with jumbo frets and a 16-inch fingerboard radius, the Stargazer has very clear vintage inspiration combined with modern feel and playability. Now, here's my hot take, and it's gonna piss a lot of people off, but it has to be said. Rickenbacker 4000 series basses are iconic because really cool people played them. People like Lemmy, people like Geddy Lee, but they're pretty ugly. Nothing matches. It comes across as like cobbled together. They do look beefy though, and they've got a lovable retro charm to them. At least the basses do, but the guitars are just like, what happened? The 600 series at least has that iconic upper Rickenbacker horn, but other than that, there's so many competing design elements that don't fit together. You've got like all these sharp angles and aggressive points, but then you've also got like this big bloated balloon of a body with these random tiny appendages. It's like a deformed Chansey. Alright, I'm gonna stop because I know people love them. It just doesn't do anything for me. Schecter's take on the theme with the Stargazers though, I actually don't mind it. Across the line, for guitar and for bass, the whole design seems to flow together a lot better. For me, this is like if Rickenbackers actually looked kinda good. So from a guitar perspective, I actually really want to try the 12-string. Most of those retro style 12 strings don't look great either. I mean, the 12-string headstock looks insane, but it's not ugly like the Gibson Non-Reverse Firebird 5 or like the Squier Paranormal Jazzmaster 12-string. Most importantly, I'm confident we could get the 12-string Stargazer to chug pretty hard. As for the bass side, and I have to re-emphasize, I'm not a bass player, but I feel like in terms of whether or not this is an affordable Rickenbacker alternative, I feel like if you want a Rickenbacker, you kind of just have to get a Rickenbacker. The 4000 series, it's just such an iconic instrument and nothing else is quite like it. From the scale length to the mono stereo outputs on the higher models to even just the chaotic look in Fireglow finish. You know what I mean? It's like same general concepts, but two very different things that are cool in their own ways. You know, the Stargazers have different fingerboards, different necks, they've got 5-string, 12-string, just different different instruments. But overall, the Stargazers reinforce what I already think about this very underrated side of Schecter. The way they blend vintage-inspired elements and vibes with modern playability is just so cool. And you have to applaud Schecter for just having the absolute gall to drop both a 12-string guitar and a 12-string bass at the same time, and also left-handed. But yeah, that is more than enough rambling from me. Here's where I'll throw it to you. What do you think of the new Stargazer series? What do you think about the previous generation, the missing double O shape? Have you checked out any of Schecter's retro series? Did you even know this side of Schecter existed? Any other thoughts? Drop them down below. Right, so again, we've gone down a very deep rabbit hole. F in the chat for my poor editor, who's now going to have to throw up so many graphics for all the shit I just rambled about. So let's do a round of quick fire gear news and interesting guitar shit. Keep these on your radar. Who even came up with this ridiculous idea? So the sitar is a traditional Indian instrument invented in the 18th century and used in Hindustani classical music. Crackle finishes were very popular in the 80s for metal super shredders. And so here is the Danelectro electric sitar that comes in red Crackle. What the shit? But if you know the story, this makes way more sense than it first seems. Sitar became popular in the 1960s for that psychedelic sound, go figure. It's hard to learn though, so a session musician named Vincent Bell designed an instrument you played like a guitar, but thanks to a special bridge and 13 sympathetic string section, emulated the sitar's buzzy tone and droning strings. In 1967, he and Danelectro put it into production under the Coral brand in a finish called Textured Bombay Red, and it's actually featured on a ridiculous number of recordings: Rolling Stones, Santana, the All-American Rejects. So the Crackle reissues are throwbacks to the original, not the unhinged but way funnier concept of, hey, what if we throw a BC Ridge finish on a sitar? Then, Fender, stop it. For the 20th anniversary of the video game series Monster Hunter, Fender and Capcom are dropping a Rathalos Telecaster, with aesthetics inspired by one of the most iconic monsters in the series. There's two versions. The standard release will have a satin finished alder body and a bolt-on maple neck, rosewood fingerboard with only a Rathalos inlay on the 12th fret, vintage style locking tuners, apparently specially voiced Rathalos pickups, not sure if I believe that though, custom graphics on a numbered neck plate, and a special hard case. Then the limited edition version, only available directly through Fender and their Tokyo flagship store, adds a custom engraved neck, Rathalos claw marks taking chunks out of the pickguard and humbucker cover, and it glows red in the fucking dark. Dude, and the limited edition hard case and pick set is even designed to look like the in-game supply box. I'm not usually one for themed tie-ins, but damn it, they found my weakness. I literally poured hundreds of hours into Monster Hunter 2 and 3 back in the day. This fucking rules so hard. Hopefully this does well and we get more of these. A Gravios bass would be sick. And now it's time to hear from yet another adoring fan. It's the high praise of the week. I just hear a bad sounding player. Damn man, you got that from me rambling like 20 minutes about some random Schecters instead of playing a single note? That's high praise. And on that note, that'll do it for this week's episode of Ask a Fish. Massive thanks to my incredible supporters on Patreon. You guys are the reason these videos keep happening, and your names are up on the screen right now because literally without you, the channel would be dead. If you enjoy the content and would like to join them in supporting the channel, you can become a patron for bonus extras, and you get to see your name up there too. Social media, merch, and Discord server links are in the description, as well as a link to Kickass Audio, our new company. Visit the site, get a free IR, try the kickassness for yourself. As always, thanks so much for watching. You've been awesome, and I will see you for the next video.